From Tally to Cali, it's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up! Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.
One ball, corner pocket.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! What is up, everybody? It's Aslan Hajavandi. It's Corey Clark. It's Wake Up Warchant. It's live. It's presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, Tallahassee, Florida. cptallybar.com, the website. Check it out. QR code on your screen. Hit it. Takes you right to the website. Lunch specials, Monday through Friday. Friday's lunch special, chicken fingers, hand-breaded, dipped in a sauce of your choice, or the sauce is on the side. It's your world. Pick how you want it. Over at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, 2475 Appalachia Parkway. And since we are live, we're also presented by our good friends over at Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com, promo code WordChamp BOGO. It's on your screen. So's my face. So's Corey Clark's face. Corey Clark, how are you, friend?
Good, man. Are you getting married later tonight? What's going on?
So, I don't know, man. It's either going to be a party or a funeral, somebody said, and I thought I would dress accordingly. You're wearing black, so why are you criticizing me?
Well, you're dressed up in a suit. That's not usually your normal. I know you always dress nice, but you're actually dressed in a suit with a tie, so I didn't know what the occasion was, if you were getting married or had a big date afterwards or something. I clearly do not. There's nothing going on here. I'm just wearing an undershirt.
I was going to go black on black on black. I didn't want to be that ominous. So
right.
This is like, this is wedding reception ready in case it's a party, in case we're celebrating life.
Right.
Or
right.
I can go to the cemetery.
Right. That's true. Durable. It's a versatile suit. It's a versatile look. It can be either good or bad. You going to wear that to my wedding in a couple months?
No, I got bright, bold colors for you, buddy.
Sweet. Thankfully.
All right.
Anything else to talk about?
They got an offensive lineman from Alabama, so that might be an even trade, some might say.
Sure. It was yeah, man, obviously I know a lot of people are watching this because there's big news that your head coach might be on Alabama's short list of candidates to replace Saban. So, yeah, we'll all find out. I don't think there's no truth to that he would be on their list. I also don't think anything is done one way or the other in that regard. We'll all find out here I don't know, man. I would think it'd be quick in the next 12 to 24 hours would be when this would be decided one way or the other. Either Florida State sends out a release saying, hey, Mike Norvell signed a new contract extension, or Alabama sends out a tweet about who they got their guy. Those would be the two options that happen here, I would think, in the next 24 hours.
All right, well, let me ask you that then. So, not that this was a power play, but it presented itself to Mike Norvell and his associates. Are those the only two options? Is it he either leaves or there's a new, more robust contract, or could it just be like, I'm staying, I'm happy here? Or do you think there's going to have to be some sort of, attachment behind that sentiment?
Well, I mean, it would be cool if he did what Lanning did and tweeted out something about whatever that video was that Lanning from Oregon tweeted out earlier on Thursday. But, yeah, I mean, I would think, look, if Alabama came calling, I assume he would probably listen if they haven't already come calling. But also, I don't know, he might give Florida State a chance to counter. I think Florida State, I mean, he's already getting paid $8 million, right? And Saban made around 11.
Yeah.
So there's not, I mean, are they going to pay Mike Norvell more than they were paying Nick Saban? So there's not, I mean, Florida State can get close enough financially that it wouldn't be a move for money. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just wouldn't be. It would be a move for other things. Prestige, conference stability clearly is something that Alabama has going for it that Florida State does not. But I don't think the actual annual salary would be much different at Alabama than it would be at Florida State. If Florida State Florida State can play that game. They can play we're going to pay our coach this kind of money game. They can't play the conference stability. We're going to have 4 teams in the playoff every year game, because the SEC will.
It is an interesting thing, the money. I don't want to say it always comes back to money, because I think you've brought up some salient points. There's more to it than just that. I'd maybe push back on prestige. I don't think you're necessarily saying Alabama's a more prestigious job than Florida State, but some people might say that. I don't think we think that.
Honestly, I might have misspoke. I meant the conference prestige of the conference.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But when you think about so there's, let's say Saban was making 12 and Mike was making 8. So that's a $4 million difference. Like, would you, if you're Alabama, would you pay Mike Norvell the same amount of money you're paying the greatest coach of all time? Well, see, man, if you're Alabama, you can't afford to get it wrong. So you already had that money earmarked. It's not like Saban gets to sail off to the sunset with all that guaranteed money, I don't think. I mean, he's retiring, so he won't get the full balance of his contract. But then if you're Florida State, can you afford to let Mike Norvell leave for $3 million over the next 6 years? It's $18 million, let's say. It's an interesting kind of chess match chicken game that might be going on, not between Mike and the universities, but his agencies and the universities.
Yeah, look, I think no matter how this shakes out, Norvell's going to get a raise, and it's a deserved raise. His team was awesome this year and should have been in the playoff. So I think he's probably poking his head around that number anyway. So I certainly don't think Florida State says no. We can't reach. After what we just went through as a university, this is the administration talking, and as bad as this program was, to now get back to where we are now, I don't think they would say, well, it's just too much money. We can't afford it. Good luck. We can't afford to play that. I don't think that would happen. I think they truly believe in this guy. They believe in his vision. It's come true mostly to the extent we thought it's better than we thought it could be at 3 or 4 years in. So I don't think they would. I just don't think the money would be it, man. I don't think they would go so over the top and blow whatever FSU's willing to offer out of the water that Florida State couldn't match. I think if he leaves, it's for another reason. That's right, John. Thanks, buddy. I think if he leaves, it's for another reason. I think it's the conference stability, and the chance in his mind. I don't like saying any of this. I saw the guy on the selection Sunday stand up and was so disappointed that he had to walk away. Like he was so pissed off at what had just happened. Crushed, devastated. Now he would entertain leaving for that team that just devastated him and crushed all those other players. I get that that's how the world works, but man, what another punch to the balls that would be to this Florida State fan base. The team that took your spot undeservingly in the playoff then comes and gets you after your team wasn't good enough, even undefeated, to be in the playoff. They come and get you after their legend retires. That just adds another layer. Like if we were worried about him going to the 49ers or Michigan to replace Harbaugh. It feels a little different, man, than leaving Florida State to go replace that dude at that school after what happened last month.
All right. Shout out to our guy T. Giddy. I think he posted a question in the Renegade Express mailbag, which this show was supposed to be, but obviously with possible, news happening, well, not possibly happening. This is a newsworthy thing to be discussing right now. We had to pivot to this. So thanks, T. Giddy. We appreciate you, Thomas. $20 tip, Corey.
Nice. Thank you, T. Giddings.
Wake up. Love the live shows. Better than your cartoon characters.
Yeah.
Thanks again for all you do. And I hope Mike stays and we keep winning the portal game. So pivot to that. Eric Baker. Why would Norvell just grab a Bama player from the portal if he's taken that job? He's still recruiting for Florida State.
It's a fair question, right? Like, it is a fair question. Like, we don't know how far along if there have even been a contact by Alabama, or if there are any negotiations, if he's even been contacted. We don't know any of that. So maybe he's just the Florida State coach and he's acting as such. It would be in my opinion, it would be a horrendous look. And again, just another punchline in a 5-week-long marathon of punchlines to tweet what he tweeted about the commitment earlier today on Thursday, to have that quote that Aslan has on the screen right now. This is a special fit into our offensive line room. He embraces the work and culture we have established. To have that quote about a kid coming from Alabama and then leave for that kid's school the next day or 2 days later or 3 days later, that would just be another layer to the misery that Florida State fans, I think, would feel if that were to ever come close to coming true. Doesn't mean it won't, but man, read the room. If you're even thinking about leaving for Alabama, if that's even something you would contemplate, maybe hang back there a little bit, Mike, because again, that'll be something that's on freezing cold takes as soon as if you would take the Alabama job.
Let's see here. Quantrell knows. Keeping his streak alive of just asking Corey questions. Corey, you're more of a historian. If all programs are at their apex, isn't Alabama the fourth best job in the SEC? Behind Georgia, Texas, and LSU. Feels like Saban made that job.
Look, it's a fair point. Like everybody that's younger than 30, probably 25, I guess, only knows Alabama as Nick Saban's Alabama. Aslan, you remember Alabama before Nick Saban. We talked about it last show. A lot of Mikes that didn't do anything. Keep that in mind, Norvell, by the way. Their history with Mikes is horrendous. Do not under any circumstances go to some hotel with a couple of strippers and yell out roll tide. Although that didn't really happen, did it? Weren't they sued for that story, the Mike Price story?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, don't get caught in anything like that. But yeah, man. So my whole lifetime, when I was watching college football, so let's say from 1982 to now, or 1982 to Saban, they had a 2-year run. They had a 2-year run with Stallings in 92, 93, or 91, 92, whatever that was, with Jay Barker as the quarterback. They won a national title against Miami. And then that was it. They were nothing. They were inconsequential in the world of college football, and they were for 3 decades. So, yeah, I think but the point is, what is that job now? Has Saban made it such a juggernaut that it's hard to be average there because it's just such a ubiquitous school now. It's the power in the nation that it wasn't when he took that job. It wasn't. I would still rank it ahead of Texas, by the way. But
LSU too, I would.
Yeah, I think the deal with LSU though is they've shown recently that they can win with multiple coaches. Like if you're a decent coach or you get a couple of good if you get a good quarterback in there, you're going to win at LSU apparently. So they've shown they can do that. It's hard to even remember what Alabama was like before Saban. But it was horrible. That's why they took him. That's why they threw the bank at him. Is because they needed an upgrade tremendously because they had been butt average for 3 decades. So Florida State was worlds above them for 3 decades. Then Saban, the best that ever did it, made them, I think, what they are. I still think now you can say historically what it is or isn't. Right now, coming on the heels of what Saban built, it is a juggernaut. And it doesn't mean juggernaut. We've seen it firsthand. Juggernauts split up. They fall apart. They crash to the ground. But it's certainly an appealing job, I would think. It's a championship caliber job, clearly, right now.
But I just do wonder how much of that brand is Saban, though, because Alabama, if you're of a younger generation or, by and large, when Alabama's winning with Bear Bryant or that little window with Gene Stallings or Nick Saban, like it's a juggernaut. It's just really impressive, like almost, I don't know, like endearing to people outside the South because they see just how passionate, Alabama fans are. But man, it's Nick Saban. Alabama is Nick Saban. Nick Saban is, I think it's more so that Alabama's Nick Saban, more so than Nick Saban is Alabama when people think about him.
Yeah.
One of the top, I think, prospects in the 25 class or maybe the 24 class, I think decommitted last night once Saban made it official that he's going to be retiring. I mean, I don't know how many other guys are going to leave that program. They have 30 days, but it'll be interesting to see how many of those guys leave because, we think about Jalen Key last year, right? Corey, the kid from UAB that I think was actually from the Tallahassee area, perhaps. And for him, the decision between Florida State and Alabama was a really tough one, right? Florida State needed him. Alabama needed him. But it's like, yeah, man, but you go to Alabama, you get coached by that guy. He's a kingmaker. Like, you're probably going to go to the NFL if he sees it in you and you listen to what he says. That element is gone now. Like, that whole of going to Alabama, I'm going pro, we're going to win championships. That was a complete sort of given. That's no longer the case if he is not there.
Correct.
And they can certainly do this wrong. I mean, they could get the wrong guy. I don't think Mike Norvell would be the wrong guy just because we've seen what he's done here. And I don't know what would derail Mike Norvell in Alabama if it were to happen. Not saying that's going to, and we got Lisa here saying, please just tell us whether he's staying or leaving. We don't know, but why would it not work? Why would Mike Norvell, not even Alabama so much, Corey, but like what we've seen him do here, how would that not travel to pretty much every other university in this country and be a success?
I mean, it's a good question. I believe in the guy. I think he's a very good coach. I think Alabama is such its own thing. It's such its own entity that it's hard to know, like, okay, if you could win at Memphis and you could win at Florida State, does that mean you absolutely can win at Alabama to their liking? Like, of course you're going to win at Alabama. You're not going to go 3-9 there. The players are going to be too good, at least in the beginning. But you can go 8-4, and if you go 8-4 a couple of times in Tuscaloosa after what this guy just did, you're done. You're done. And that is a realistic thing that can happen when you're adding Texas and Oklahoma to an already tough conference. You can have a pretty good team, top 25-ish team, and lose 4 times. And if you do that twice in Tuscaloosa in your first 2 or 3 years, you're going to be looking for another job. But yes, I don't think there's anything in his makeup that wouldn't handle it. It would be a very interesting combination of just it would be an interesting marriage of his personality to that fan base and what that fan base is used to. Imagine Mike Norvell being after what they just had with Nick Saban. Hi, everybody. Hey, everybody. Like what when you hear him walking down the halls at Moore. Hello, good to see you. Good to see you, Johnny. Head up, buddy. How you doing? Like all that stuff. It's the complete opposite of what Nick Saban has been there. And it would take some getting used to for those for everybody in Alabama. But yeah, I wouldn't predict that he would do poorly there. I am 100% going to predict he won't be nearly as good as the guy he's succeeding. Not even close. And those are real tough shoes to stand in. Again, as I said on yesterday's show, I think it would be foolish on his part. I get it. It is Alabama, but there's in the short term right now as we talk, what did we see the last year that makes you think you can't put together a roster like Alabama's here at Florida State? He just did it. He just had as good a team as Nick Saban had in his 4th year here in Florida State. Nick Saban was in his 15th. He just put together a better team or as good a team as Nick Saban had. Probably a better team, in my opinion, from top to bottom. At least they had a better quarterback until he got hurt. So why then, what are they offering over there? What's so shiny in Tuscaloosa that you would leave a powerhouse? You would leave a juggernaut that has not only competed for national championships, but won them with 2 different coaches. Why would you leave that school? I think that's the better question. Why would you leave Florida State, which is on par? It's not as good as Alabama, but it's in the neighborhood. When all that pressure and all those expectations, and they're so unrealistic and they're so unfillable, those shoes, that you're going to be a disappointment. And they're not going to love you, man. They'll like you if you win games, but they won't love you in Tuscaloosa like they love you in Tallahassee, man. They just won't, because you're taking over you're not taking over for Willie Taggart when you're having to pick up the car wreck. You're taking over for the best that's ever done it. And there's nowhere to go from what Nick Saban did. There's nowhere to go but down. And I mean, God love him if he's willing to take that challenge, but it's a unique challenge that I just think it's something you'd have to think long and hard about doing.
I know it's like a very popular like talking point. I don't want to totally dismiss it because I get it. I just don't necessarily subscribe to the whole you don't want to be the guy that follows Nick Saban, because I don't think the pressure is not going to ruin what you're trying to build. You have like
you're not trying to build anything. You're trying to keep it up. That's the difference, right? Well, it's easier to build. It's easier to get to the top than it is to stay there. He's already at the mountain. That I guess that's the difference, right? In my opinion, I get what you're saying. The pressure is going to be the pressure, and it's not going to affect the way he recruits or calls plays. But man, it's a lot of pressure. It's different when you take over. When was the last time this happened where somebody took over a national championship program? It doesn't. Usually you're taking over after a Willie Taggart.
Yeah.
You know, after a Jimbo goes 5-6. Those are the programs that you take over for, or Miami. You don't typically take over for a guy like Nick
Jimmy
Saban.
Johnson. We got to go all the way back to Jimmy Johnson.
It's been a minute. It's been a minute since a college champ. I think a national championship caliber program has had to hire somebody, and this is unlike any other national championship program there's ever been because they've been so good for so long. And like you said, you know, these recruits, anybody that got signed by Alabama in the last 15 years thought they were going to be a first-round pick. All of them. And there were a ton of them. It's not like they were all wrong, But you go to Alabama thinking I know I'm gonna get coached well. I know we're gonna win a ton of games, and I know I'm going to the NFL. That leaves a little bit with Nick Saban. When Nick Saban exits, like you said, that mystique is going to leave with him. And there's going to be pressure to stay at that mountaintop, even though Mike Norvell is not Nick Saban. Maybe he's better than Nick Saban. We'll see. He's young. He certainly accomplished more at 40 than Nick Saban had, so maybe he is better than Saban.
I mean, do we look at Saban himself and like when he left LSU, and then it took, 3 years for Les Miles?
That's a good one. Yeah.
You know?
Is there another? I mean, I'm sure Pete Carroll, when he left USC, that didn't go well.
But there was some other stuff going on, obviously, with the NCAA investigations and scholarship reductions, things like that. But, yeah, I mean, the only things I can think of, not the prestige of like Alabama, but like that is the flagship university. That is the number one undisputed school in that state. And in Florida State, it's always a battle between you and Florida for who owns the headlines. And there's some other stuff going on in the state, whether it's, pro sports that kind of take some of the shine away maybe from you. But, 365 days a year, anything that Nick Saban does in Alabama is news.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Maybe you should kind of appreciate the fact that you can kind of maybe live a life in Tallahassee. You can live a life in Florida if you're Mike Norvell. But if you're the head football coach at Alabama, like you're constantly under the spotlight. And then, Corey, I mean, doesn't it come back to this conference ultimately?
That's where I wanted to get to next, right?
So the amount of money that you might get it if you stay here. Like you might be able to, you have a great house on a great piece of property if you're the head football coach at Florida State. Same thing with Alabama. But at Alabama, you're going to constantly be able to walk to your mailbox every single month and get a big check to keep your house looking as cool as everybody else on the block. Florida State, you might.
Yeah.
You might, but you definitely don't have that stability that you have elsewhere if you're talking about Alabama.
I agree, and that's a twofold issue there. Number one, if Norvell would leave for Alabama, to me, honestly, that's the only reason he would leave that would make any sense, is the conference instability. Where are they going to play? Are they really going to be $35 or $40 million in the hole every year to Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Auburn, all these teams they're trying to recruit against? Are they really going to make, in the next decade, $400 million less? Because that's not fair. He wants to go win championships. It's going to be harder and harder to win championships and to put together great seasons and great teams when you're $40 million in the hole just from TV revenue from all these other schools in the South. So that's a real concern, and that's what I think would make Alabama, any SEC school, appealing. But not any. That was a way overstatement. 3 or 4 might be appealing because of that, just the conference stability, and they're not suing their conference to try to get out of it right now. The other issue is, let's say Norvell does leave, and let's say it's not even for Alabama. Let's say it's next year for whoever, the Cowboys. What kind of coach, what pool do you get to fish from? What pond do you get to fish from to get your new coach with all this stuff still so uncertain with your conference? Like does Florida State, would coaches be like, would Lane Kiffin even think about coming to Florida State with all this uncertainty? Because here's the reality, folks. He would probably be my first call, and I think he would be interested, because he wouldn't be my first call, but he'd be on my short list. My first call, obviously, is to Dion. Bring the whole band back together. Absolutely. Let's go. Travis Hunter. It's been the long game, but we want Travis in Tallahassee for his final year. So Lane Kiffin is at Ole Miss. Going from Ole Miss to Florida State is an enormous jump in everything that matters. History, tradition, fan base, chances of winning a national championship. All of it is better at Florida State. But would he be willing to make that jump not knowing what conference? And I'm just using him as an example. And that's where I wonder who they could realistically go after, as long as this conference stuff is up in the air, which makes it even more imperative in my mind when you already have a very good coach. You have a good coach. You have a good coach that can win here, is to try everything you can to keep him here. Because it might be hard to find a replacement that is as good as him. It's not impossible. Jimbo turned out to not be a savant. He wasn't a genius. He went undefeated. Norvell's gone undefeated. There's probably not more than 3 or 4 schools in the country, maybe 3, that in the last 25 years have had 3 different coaches go undefeated. You've got two of them. Florida State's one of them. So it's not like Norvell is some magician, but he's a very good coach, and you know what he has, and you know what you have in him. And there's it's always the unknown, as we saw between Jimbo and Mike. It's always the unknown when it comes to hiring coaches.
Ric Flair says, "Woo!
Amen,
I need some
Rick.
damn Vitamin Energy Mood Plus. You want it, you got it, everybody. VitaminEnergy.com. Promo code is Warchant BOGO, Warchant BOGO. Buy one item, get one of equal or lesser value for absolutely free over at VitaminEnergy.com. You can try out the variety pack. That'll get you your Mood Plus, Ric Flair. It also gets you your Immune Plus, gets you your Focus Plus, Workout Plus, all of it. Try it out. Shake it and take it. Try it. I think you'll like it. Promo code again, Warchant BOGO, the world's first and only clinically proven, clinically tested energy shot to not only help out with your energy, but also your mood, your focus, reduce brain fog. Again, all of it's there for you. It's energy with benefits and nutrients. VitaminEnergy.com. One more time, Corey. Promo code is
Warchant BOGO. And hey, I got something else that might help people's moods, Aslan. I think this isn't breaking news. It's just something I've been thinking about, is that if it were to happen, and I don't want it to happen, folks. I like him. I love the coverage we have. Because that's my biggest concern, honestly. I like the guy, and I love what he's done with the program. The access is unbelievable. And whoever replaces him isn't going to give us that access, and it won't be as fun to cover this team. We'll still do it. We're still Warchant, baby, but it won't be as fun. But, if this were happening 5 years ago, and I get it, people are still very, very concerned. You would be extremely worried because it's almost like you're going to be kneecapped for 2 to 3 years as the new coach comes in and has to rebuild his roster. It doesn't – typically there weren't a lot that turned it around in a year. And so you'd be like, well, I guess you're punting on 2024 and you might be punting on 25. You might be lucky to win 6 games either of those years. It's a brand new sport, folks. And so let's just play this out. Let's say that Norvell goes to Alabama. You have a opening in the middle of effing January. Great. Not the best time. You want it. The new coach comes in. Let's say it's it doesn't even matter. School X.
Why not Lane Kiffin?
Okay, we'll say Lane Kiffin. I don't know how realistic that would even be. I don't know if they'd want him, but he'd be somebody I would have on my short list. But let's say Lane Kiffin comes in. Well, he's going to bring in some guys from his school, and he's got some very good players. It's also the portal, and you can reshuffle these rosters and realign these rosters with so much quickness that you can be competitive in year one. You can be really good by year 2. And so that, I guess that's my mood energy drink here, is that if it does happen, it doesn't mean Florida State's about to fall into a cliff again. The one thing positive you would say about Norvell, and I would say a lot of negative things about him if he took this particular job, I promise I would, and I will if that ever happened, is he left this place he left Florida State in a place where it's a much more appealing job than it was in 2019, clearly. So that pond you're fishing from is bigger, and it's got better fish in it. So that is a really big plus that he's already done for the school if he were to leave. You hope they hit a home run, and if they do hit a home run, it won't take him. He shouldn't go through an awful 3-6 season. He shouldn't have a team that can lose to Jacksonville State. He will be able to replenish the roster, and he's built up that brand Norvell has to where Florida State is a destination school again. It's a power school again. It's in the nation. It's in the consciousness again. And so recruits will want to come. Portal kids will want to come. And if you make the right hire, you could be back up and running maybe not a year from now, but 2 years from now for sure, right?
Yes.
And you got money to spend on players. You've got money. Hey, instead of paying Norvell $11 million to stay, pay your next guy $4.5 million and spend the difference on a whole new offensive and defensive line and a great quarterback.
Here's my contribution to the good vibes. Virgin de Guadalupe. I went and got us a prayer candle, Corey.
Oh, awesome, man. Thank you.
So shout out to everybody out there. This is for you. Cleveland, this is for you. May she guide over us here in the next 24 hours, as Corey has set a artificial deadline for us to find this thing out. Shout out to Benjamin Haygood, by the way. Ben in the house. Wake up, boys. Great portal talent coming. If Mike leaves, he deserves it. but I think he stays. What are the rest of the needs in the portal? Go Noles. You guys are the best coverage of our beloved Noles.
Hey, thanks, Benjamin. We appreciate that, buddy. Linebacker, right?
That kid from Syracuse committed to Nebraska. What a jerk.
What's he thinking? We go play with Lincoln, Nebraska? Come on, man. Yeah, I would say linebacker, although they got Lundy. They got this kid out of the portal from Florida State who'd been a productive player for a couple of years. So they got him back. Yeah, I would say, honestly, linebacker, maybe one more offensive lineman. I don't know. I don't know if they're
well, they got Ferguson from Alabama, so I think you're good. That
you think
kind
you're
of
good? I think they might look for another one. I maybe they're done. But now they're up to 11 portal guys. I think now they had the 5th ranked class. They might still be 5th or 4th in the portal. They've done it, man. They've done it again. They've addressed their needs. Again, when you look at who they brought in, well, we didn't know what Jared Verse was when he came in. He was highly thought of, but he was an Albany transfer. We didn't know he was going to be this guy. So the point being, I don't know that you have a Jared Verse type talent in this group of portal kids, but I also don't know that you don't. Marvin Jones Jr. might be that guy. There might be another one. That one of these linemen, one of these wide receivers might be incredible. We'll see. I don't know if there's a Keon or a Jared in here, but I don't know that there isn't. But it has certainly addressed some needs, and they should be very, very competitive again next season, I would think.
Thank you, Benjamin. Appreciate you, man. Warchant.com, by the way, as we sit here and we talk, updates on this ongoing situation are being provided by our own Irish O'Fell as well as Gene Williams. Florida man in Texas wondering, is Ira sitting in his car right now outside Mike's house with binoculars looking for a tree?
He should be if he isn't. Does he care about this job or not? It's a great question, Florida man. That is a great question.
Great question here from our guy over in Pensacola, the Pack Buster. Let's assume Mike stays, which we should.
Yeah,
we should. What's the floor? What's the ceiling for Florida State in 2024, Corey Clark?
I think the floor is 8 wins, 8-4. I think that's the floor. Maybe you get unlucky, 7-5, but I think the floor, the absolute floor, is 8. And then the ceiling is a playoff berth. I don't think they'll have enough special talent necessarily, the Keons versus Jordan Travises of the world, to make a run and win a national championship. But I'm not going to limit these guys. I certainly wouldn't have thought Washington would be in the national championship game down by a score in the fourth quarter either. I didn't think that was a possibility, and there they were. So when the season started. So I don't want to put a limit on them. I think the ceiling for them is a playoff berth. I think the floor is 7 to 8 wins. Now, if they get horrible injury luck, who knows? But that right now, as you ask me, 8.5 months from the season starting, and we don't know who the coach is, I say the floor is that.
Yeah, it's like 7 months in a week. 7 months, 7.5.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's right. You're right. We're getting Norvell really not going to go to Ireland. What are you'd rather be in Tuscaloosa than Ireland? I will say this. I think it's funny about this though, and I know it probably sounds like I think he's gone. I don't at all. I don't really have an opinion one way or the other. I think he'd be dumb to go, but I also understand it is Alabama. I think what would pain people is just who he seems to be as a person and how unique this journey has been over these last 4 years to build this program up. To then go, it's like he coached the Marlins, and I'm not comparing Florida State to the Marlins in perpetuity. I'm just saying in those 4 years, he was coaching the Royals and got them to the World Series and then left for the Yankees. It was something kind of special about, it's really special about what he's done these last 2 or 3 years. And I think there is a real connection. I could be wrong because I'm not technically a fan. I think there's a real special connection between him and these fans. I really do. And I think when he shows that hurt and that disgust, like he did after the Orange Bowl, like he did after the snub, like he did when I asked him the question before the Syracuse game, when you see that emotion, he really does care. And I feel like Florida State fans have had a nice, really, really intense, special connection with this man, leading their program back from oblivion to almost the top of the mountaintop. For them to then, zip line to another mountain and say, hey, thanks for everything, would really be even more crushing to some. I can tell you this, Stephanie, soon to be Stephanie Clark, Was devastated when I told her. Like, I should read you the text. Was devastated when I told her that this was a possibility that his name was coming up on these lists.
It's all right, Steph. Be strong. Browns are here for you too, always. Trying to find somebody tweeting out fake news. I got to try to delete them out of the chat, but they've escaped my my grasp here. P. Simpson, Aslan, as an SEC guy yourself who's been in the trenches, who do you want to see Alabama hire? Who would you hire? So I guess apparently Kalen DeBoer is the name that's being bandied about at this minute, at this hour, Corey.
I think he was the leader in Vegas odds after Lanning took his name out of the running. But Lanning was the leader last night, and we saw how that played out.
I don't know if I would value Kalen DeBoer's resume more than Mike Norvell's. I think what Washington did this year is obviously impressive. I don't think Florida State would have done any worse, probably, if they would have made it to the playoff with their starting quarterback. Again, I don't think they probably were four of the best teams without their starting quarterback. Sorry, I don't. But that would seem
the
like
most deserving. You do think they were one of the most deserving.
Yeah, I mean, if you made it through all that trials and tribulations, adversity. But we had really good playoff games, man. I don't know if we had a really good semifinal game.
I mean, I wouldn't say that Alabama-Michigan game was a good game. It was a close game. It was a lot of punts. And I feel like Florida State and Michigan would have had a lot of punts too. Master Motto would have introduced himself to the world in that game.
It just, I hate being the guys that go, it's a bad cultural fit, but like it doesn't feel like Brian Harsin. You know, the spectrum probably is like Brian Harsin, Boise to Auburn, and then Urban Meyer, Utah to Gainesville, like Salt Lake to Gainesville, Boise to Auburn.
Yeah, I'm trying
Seattle
to look up
Tuscaloosa. It's somewhere on that spectrum, but I trust Kalen DeBoer more than I do Brian Harsin, so I probably would put it a little closer to the Urban Meyer success scale, if you will. And I don't think he's going to leave you in shambles and leave your program as a joke and an absolute travesty. I don't know, man. Like, listen, I wasn't the biggest Mike Norvell guy. I didn't necessarily want him to get hired when they lost Willie Taggart. I was a Lane guy. We've gone over this, but it's hard to really argue against what he's done. And again, if you listen to why Nick Saban left, according to Chris Lowe, you know, and some of the quotes that were laid out here today, Corey, the whole pay for play stuff is a huge deal for him. It was all about creating a team, trying to develop them as players, get them ready for the next level. Now it's about, you know, can you give me $150,000 up front right now? It's no longer the 40-year plan that he tried to create for players. So that's the reality of it. That's why we're probably not hearing Dabo Swinney's name mentioned a lot in this. The way this game is played now, it's hard to argue against Mike Norvell probably being the best fit for your program if you're ready to go down that route, which everybody is apparently other than Clemson.
I think also he is from the South. He's recruited against Alabama. He's not from the SEC. He hasn't been in the SEC, but he's born in Texas. He played college ball in Arkansas, not at Arkansas, but in Arkansas. And he's now coached in the ACC and at Florida State for 4 years to go along with Memphis before that. So he's from around this area. The guy from Washington was born in South Dakota, has coached nothing but up there in that area of the world. Like the SEC in the South is just different. So I think that would, if I was hiring, that's who I would look to, is somebody that knows the landscape of what it's like to recruit against these teams in the South. Then again, though, I keep coming back to this, man. I don't know how much different recruiting is now. I assume it's a lot different. I don't think Kalen DeBoer, if you said, hey, man, we think you're a really good coach, here's $14 million to build your roster with NIL, I think he'd pull a pretty good roster, even if he doesn't speak with a Southern accent. You know what I mean? I think the money talks, the accent on the money means a lot more than the Southern accent coming out of somebody's mouth. So I don't even know how much any of that is a factor anymore. You know, I would think Alabama's first choice would be Sark or Kiffin, two guys that have been there that know it. I know Kiffin left not in great circumstances, and there's always poked fun at Saban when he's been at Ole Miss, but he's now proven, I think, at Tennessee to a much lesser extent, but now at Ole Miss, he can compete in the SEC. His style can work in the SEC. That I think he would be more appealing. I think, honestly, Norvell's much more of a wild card than Kiffin because you just don't know. The SEC West is different, man. It's just different. I think Kiffin has proven he can be a pretty good SEC coach. But that said, I don't think Norvell would be a horrible hire by any stretch. It's just a different. It's going to be a different. It would be a different challenge for him for sure.
I think if Lane Kiffin was remarried and he didn't use Twitter, he would be the head coach right now. They would have made the hire 5 hours ago, but he didn't get remarried. He's just a bachelor living his life, and he just trolls and has fun with this stuff. Like, again, like Alabama, you're probably like the most powerful person in that state, even more so than the governor. That might be a little hyperbolic, but not
really. Well, I can tell you that Saban certainly was.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think Norvell steps in and is on this pedestal that Saban was on, but
win a couple rings though.
Exactly. But here's the thing, man. Here's what's so fascinating about this is that don't just get to the playoffs, big dog. That's expected. You finish in the top 12, whoop-de-doo, you're Alabama. That's expected from August. So all the talk about climbing and getting all that stuff none of that is going to resonate at that place after the last 15 years like it does here. And so you could talk to the guy at Washington too, or anybody, Kiffin. Like, man, Alabama ain't going to be okay with just playoff appearances. You go to 3 straight playoffs, but never make it to the finals or never make it to the semifinals. You might be out of a job. That's the reality, and that you couldn't say that of any other program in the country, but that one.
Leo Noel, $4.99. Corey, this is just a tip, not a donation.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thanks to Ed Lemix. Can you try to interpret this for us, Corey, as I drop a sounder? Think about it for a second here.
Big ballin', smashing, making my ends.
I think, Ed, we love you. Love Courtney. Can't wait to see you again, buddy, whenever that might be. I feel like he's saying that he hears the Alabama running back.
Oh, okay. All right.
Is what he's saying there? Yeah.
Roydell Williams. That's a guy. That's a dude. Yeah. Shout out to Josiah back there, dropping that in the chat for me.
Is he in the portal? I guess he's in the portal. Well, they're all in the portal right now, I assume. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Well, he was before this happened as well. Corey, how about King Spleen? Why hasn't Mike Norvell done what Dan Lanning has done and make a statement?
It's a fair question, King. I don't know. Maybe he would think it's presumptuous. Maybe he hasn't been offered the job, and he would think it'd be presumptuous to say, I'm not interested in that job, even though it hasn't been offered to him. So maybe he doesn't think there's a statement to make, or maybe he's interested. I mean, I legitimately don't know. I haven't talked to Mike in the last, since the Orange Bowl. So I don't know why. But it would be nice. I'll say that. It would be nice to go ahead in the next tweet. Don't tell us how it's great to be a Seminole because you got another kid in the portal. Tell everybody it's great to be a Seminole because you're staying a Seminole. And that's what everybody would want to hear and everybody would want to see.
Noldat says Norvell doesn't owe us a statement.
If there's no news, then there's no news. And look, man, there's also the negotiation aspect of this. Like, don't come out all of us would want a nice 20% bump. And if the best way to get a 20% bump is to just lay low and be quiet and don't address it at all for an hour, for a day or two, I think it stands to reason that could be something he's doing as well. Maybe Lanning got what he wanted, and he got re-upped. And when that happened, he's like, "Get me my phone. I'm going on Twitter." And maybe that hasn't necessarily happened with Mike Norvell yet because maybe they haven't started any negotiations.
And the whole conference thing, right, Corey? Like he's going to the Big Ten. Dan Lanning's got all that he wants. He's going to a good conference. He knows he's set up there. Meanwhile, again, there's some of that uncertainty that you're dealing with if you're the head coach of Florida State right now. But I do wonder, I mean, how far ahead in life does Mike Norvell think? Because I get it. After a certain amount of time, it's not tenable to get the payout the ACC is going to get versus what the Big Ten and the SEC are going to get. But man, I would rather have to worry about beating NC State, Pittsburgh, and Clemson than have to worry about beating LSU, Georgia, and Auburn. I'll throw that in there. So how much of that stuff is in the forefront of his mind? Or do you look at it through the lens of like, all right, man, 12-team playoff, highest conference champions, whatever the 5 highest ranked conference champions. I just need to hold serve in this conference. And I feel comfortable in this conference. Like I've been in here now 3-4 years, 24,
If you count 2020, which we do, that was his 4th year that we just completed.
I've coached against these guys. I see when they lose a coach, this is who they bring in. They lost Mike Elko. They brought in Manny Diaz. It's not a gauntlet that's so overwhelming. And say whatever you want about the SEC, man. Like, I give a lot of props to Georgia and the way they finished the season, because I think they finished the season doing they would play Missouri, Ole Miss, Georgia Tech, and then Alabama.
Yeah.
That was their last 4 games. We had a cupcake. Alabama had a cupcake that last game, the second to last week in November before they played that last game. I think there was an accumulation of playing in that conference 4 games in a row when you play pretty elite competition. I know Georgia Tech is not in the SEC. But man, that's just a really tough thing to go through. That would make me pause way more than having to fill the shoes of Nick Saban.
You mean just how hard it is to win there? Yeah. All of it makes sense, man. All of it is something you would think about. Like
the ACC financially, not a great thing, but from a competitive standpoint, it gives you the platform to recruit well and to compete for a playoff spot in this new 12-team world. So
agreed.
Hang on for 2 more years, Corey, if you're Mike Norvell. And if you keep winning here, whatever the next big job opens in the SEC Big Ten, you'll take that one. But in the meantime, you have a good thing here, it feels.
Also, if you wait 2 years here, maybe you're in the Big Ten at Florida State and you're getting all that money. The money's raining down on you anyway. So yeah, man, I want to not sound like a homer because we cover Florida State and I grew up cheering for Florida State. I think it would be a mistake to take that job. I think like Aslan just said, it is harder, much harder to win there. Saban made it look much easier than it is. Go ask all of the guys that coached there before Saban how easy it was just to coach there in general. And now you've added Texas and Oklahoma. A&M could be a problem if Elko's any good. It's just hard, man. You could have a really good team and go 9-3 or 8-4 and maybe miss the playoff. Meanwhile, in the ACC, it is easier to win right now, and he's proven that. He just went 13-0 in the ACC. So yeah, and also I just keep coming back to the quality of life, and maybe I'm just trying to project it, and maybe this is completely naive. I don't think the money would be different enough that, living in Tallahassee and living in Tuscaloosa for my family when I'm the head football coach is a whole different deal. It's just a whole different deal. And Tom Lang said this on the Jeff Cameron show earlier today. It's 100% true. That seat is warm as soon as you sit in it. It's warm. You don't have 2-3 years to find your footing. They're not going to put up with it. It is warm, and they're going to be questioning you from the start, not just because it's Alabama, but because who you're replacing. All that comes into it where it's easy. I think – I don't know. Do you think it's easier to –
Corey,
do what?
I mean, if he doesn't pull out of 0-4 in 2021 – it's not very different, the expectations here. And I know we might not go on radio shows and brag about.
I would say this: if he lost to Jacksonville State in year 2, the way they lost, he might not have been the coach at Alabama on Monday.
Yeah.
I think there's the difference, but still, and because Florida State still owed Taggart all that money, they couldn't afford. They don't have the resources that Alabama does. They can write a check and say, "Okay, we made a mistake. Let's go."
Isn't he off the books, by the way? Are we coming up close to the Bobby Bonilla day?
I think he is off the books just in time for that the facility to start being built, the Willie Taggart practice facility. So yeah, man. I have no inside knowledge that he's going or staying. I know he's on a list. I assume they'll reach out to him at some point. I don't know if he was their first, second, or third choice. I don't think he was their first. I think the guy at Oregon was their first. And I just, you're not. Florida State isn't South Carolina. Florida State isn't even Oregon or Oregon State. Florida State is a powerhouse that after the scrap heap that you had to pull yourself out of 2 years ago, you just went 13-0 and should have been a playoff team with a bunch of NFL players. You just did that at Florida State. That does not happen at other schools. Florida State, again, Alabama without Nick Saban is here. Florida State is here. That's the way it's been my whole life. Now, Alabama without Nick Saban has raised the bar, but let's see what that looks like, 2 or 3 years from now when Nick Saban isn't the coach. It's Dean Smith left. And nobody thought North Carolina basketball would be horrible ever. Dean Smith left, and they had a losing record 2 years later. Like, things happen. It's not, these things don't, we just saw it here at Florida State. Bobby Bowden left. It was Mark Richt left. The program crumbled a little bit. And then Jimbo left, or was in the process of leaving. It crumbled a little bit. These programs don't run themselves. It's going to be a lot of work to keep Alabama to where it's been, because, again, I think Mike Norvell is a very, very good coach, maybe a great coach. He is not Nick Saban. I'm comfortable saying that. I think Nick's the best that's ever done it, the best that will ever do it. We don't even really we won't appreciate how good he was until like 2030 when we see what Alabama becomes, because it is not like this, folks. It is not going to be a top 5 program every single year. It just won't be.
How much of the pie chart? I mean, because this is crazy, right? This is you're the head coach of Florida State. You just went 13-0. You just won the conference. Your biggest rival in this conference seemingly is on the backslide of things.
Yeah.
You have a well-endowed NIL collective. The fact that this is even being discussed, and I know it's Alabama, but this isn't, it's not a guarantee that you're just going to pick up where Nick Saban left off. How much of the pie chart of the fact that we're even having to be worried about this right now, Corey? How much of the pie chart is the fact that he did go 13-0 and didn't get that playoff?
It's a good question. I think I understand what you're saying, and I agree with it to an extent. It's like it's
not just one thing, right? There's multiple things that you don't have to squint too hard to think that this is like a possibility if offers are extended and money and everything.
I'm never going to get the credit I deserve for being a great coach, clearly, because even when I go 13-0, it's just that I coach in a not good conference. I coach in a horrible conference. All my wins are meaningless. I get that. I think that the counter, though, is that it really kind of doesn't matter moving forward because of the alteration to the playoff. Like, I meant to make that point earlier. If they were having to hire a new coach, it would be really, really hard to sell a very good coach to come to Florida State if we were staying in a 14 playoff. He would be like, well, what does it matter if I go undefeated? They're not going to appreciate it anyway, and I might not get in either way. But when you're going to a 12-team playoff, if you win the conference, you're in. So I think that frees up some people to take a chance on Florida State. It should free up Mike Norvell, if that was a concern, to understand that even if Kirk Herbstreit and Boo Corrigan, don't care that his team went undefeated and showed grit by finding ways to win even without a star quarterback, it won't matter because they'll be in regardless. So that I get what you're saying, though. Just like the perception of what he's doing here doesn't matter. But then that's weird, right? Like, all these Alabama fans were telling you that we're lampooning his accomplishments and kneecapping him and telling him they didn't matter. 13-0, big deal. You did in the ACC. Now you want him as your head coach? Well, it can't be both, right? Like, either you appreciate and acknowledge that he did a great job here and he had a great team, or you don't. I don't see how those two. It seems like two competing thoughts.
Gary Spinelli here talking about the quality of life and what's the likelihood that any coach could meet Saban's pass. You'll always be measured and compared by Saban in everything you do. Would you, though? I know I'm trying to be rational here, and we're speaking about something that's rife with irrationality. But, like, if you're the Patriots, you're not expecting to hire a coach that's going to win you 3 Super Bowls in the next 5 years. Don't Alabama fans recognize just how special Nick Saban was? And I don't want to say being realistic here, but, like, wouldn't one national title in 4 years be good enough, or do we think that's not going to fly in Tuscaloosa?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I don't think if he won a national championship in year 2 and then had a couple of 10-win seasons, no, he's fine there. But what if he doesn't? Alabama fans have not been described as the most rational fans on earth here in my lifetime. I don't think it will start now. I think, if anything, what Saban did made them more irrational. But yeah, look, there have been instances where this worked. I brought up North Carolina basketball, but then Roy Williams came, and Roy Williams lived up. I think Roy won more national championships than Dean Smith, and he's beloved in North Carolina too. So you can't go back. It's not like you can't go in there and make your own name. It's just that Roy Williams, again, didn't take the job right after Dean. He was smart enough to let Matt Doherty take it in between.
Yeah.
And I'm just telling you, man, can you imagine going from replacing Willie Taggart to going to replace Nick Saban? Nobody's ever had to do this. Like when Saban was great at LSU, but he was there for like 3 or 4 years, and they won one title. Nobody has ever had to replace something like this that was so good his whole time. He had the bad first year where he was getting his program in order, and since then they've won no less than 10 games the whole time. It'd be like somebody going to Florida State after the 2000 season. It would have been impossible. It's just impossible. So anyway.
Anyway, we'll wrap it up here. We even got our loyalists taking shots at us. Ralph, wow, an entire 1 hour live show on speculation. Sorry, man. Apologize.
I mean,
Ryan
we can talk about the
Donovan,
basketball team. We can. They're picking it up. Big game on Saturday.
Ryan Donovan says, do we know if Norvell actually interviewed yet? We don't know that, but we do know he was in Houston yesterday at the Bear Bryant Coach of the Year presentation. And to think that there wasn't somebody from Alabama there, Corey, hey, man, what's up? You see what happened?
But that implies that they knew ahead of time. Oh, you think like just somebody associated with the Bear Bryant Award?
Well, I'm sure there's Alabama people there that got on, or at least showed up somewhat later, because Norvell spoke at 5:15 Eastern time.
And the news broke like 20 minutes later or 10 minutes later.
So at worst, if you're in Tuscaloosa, you can get on a plane and probably hop over to Houston, no problem, if you're a power broker.
But that also implies that I don't know if Lanning was there, but the Washington guy was there too. So correct. All your big fish are there in one barrel to take your shot at. So yeah, maybe, I don't know. Those private planes can land in airports. You don't have to rush out to do that. No, I don't. Look, here's the thing. I don't think this is. I actually was reminded about this with Bobby Bowden. In 1986, he wanted to be the Alabama head coach. He wanted to be the Alabama head coach, and he was insulted that they wanted to interview him. They wouldn't just offer him the job. And even though he's from Alabama, he went to school there for a semester before transferring to Samford. He wanted to be the Alabama head coach. He thought that was what his life's mission was, to end up as the Alabama head coach. That had always been a dream. He was so proud and had such a healthy ego that when they said, we just want to interview you, he's like, what do you mean interview? You're either offering me the job or not, I'm not coming. And they're like, well, no, we have to interview you. He's like, all right, peace. The dynasty started the next year. I think this is an offer. I don't think it's an interview. Like, obviously they would sit down and meet and talk about things, but it's not like they're going to interview him and then decide whether they want to offer him the job. If they interview Mike Norvell, they're going to offer him the job, I would assume. But an interview isn't even like the right. I don't even think that's the right verb. I think it's just a discussion about what the job would entail. Interview sounds like, well, are they going to select me or not? I hope they pick me and not. No, if they're in deep discussions with him, it is a discussion, not an interview. That said, I don't think he has I don't think he has discussed anything with Alabama yet. I don't think he's been in Tuscaloosa. I don't think he's in Tuscaloosa now. Y'all got to get on the flight trackers, gang. Let's find out where the Alabama plane is going.
By the way, James B says, was this a scheduled show? I got no notifications. It was supposed to be a recruiting chat, but
we filled in. Well, that goes back to Ralph's question, right? Like, this wasn't a planned, like, hey, let's just talk about Mike Norvell in Alabama for an hour. It was supposed to be a recruiting show with Aslan and Langston, and it's like, can we really do that with all this up in the air? Like, nobody's going to – I mean, no offense to Mr. Ferguson, nobody really wants to talk about the offensive line portal right now because your head coach may be in limbo. So that's why we decided to do this as opposed to a recruiting show.
Yeah. All of us, we're pretty much just on standby now until Alabama makes their head coaching hire here. So hopefully it happens sooner than later. Or Gene Williams said that he was hearing, they have a drop dead date of Monday. Our guy, Florida man in Texas, will take this one and then we'll head on out here, Corey. Thank you, by the way, Florida man from Texas. We'll give you a little bit of a soundtrack. Wake up, he says. Thank you. He's actually surprised Bama didn't have a plan for the transfer like the Bowden to Jimbo handover. Or do they?
Well, but I don't think they have somebody on staff that they would promote.
Right.
And I think, again, when you want to talk about Nick Saban's greatness, it's that he has constantly had to restaff at Alabama. Coordinators, position coaches, it's never ending there, and they still stay really good. It's incredible.
Well, he was allegedly on a Zoom yesterday interviewing assistant coach candidates before he walked into the team room and was like, I'm done.
Yeah, I think he was interviewing maybe receivers coaches or something, but think about the last guy that he interviewed, like at 3:52. He's like, all right, well, thanks, Joe. I'll let you know. And then he immediately goes and retires. Joe's got to be like, what? I don't have it. I made this man. I made the all-time legend. He interviewed me and is like, I got to get out.
This
like
is all that's out there now. I can't replenish the.
But also, like, I was such a bad interview. I made him retire. Like, I just don't. I got to get a new career. I'd love to know who that very last person he was that he interviewed and what he thought of it. Like, he found out 30 minutes later. Wait, he just interviewed me and now he's retired. What happened?
All right. Well, that is. I didn't hit that. That was an accident. Yeah. Sorry. I didn't mean to hit that.
That name will come up. That name would come up.
The
Not
name
saying it's realistic, but that name would come up if Norvell were to leave. Rich Eisen certainly would suggest it.
Well, I don't know. Maybe Rich wants Dion to go to Ann Arbor.
That's right. When Harbaugh leaves. Good point.
All right. We're done. We're done for the week too, everybody. So this is fingers crossed. This is the podcast, or maybe not. Fingers crossed. Hopefully we do get some. If we get definitive word one way or the other tonight that something has happened, we'll reconvene, Corey and I, and we'll do something for YouTube, and that'll probably be the
and I would assume we'll probably have another video on this channel too, if something happens one way or the other, whenever it happens, good or bad. Hopefully good. We're hoping it's good. Stephanie certainly is. But no matter when we all know where Mike Norvell will be officially in 2024, the football season, I assume Warchant will have that covered with some videos.
How long do I leave the prayer candle on the entire night, Corey, until we get word, or can I blow out the prayer candle? Does anybody out there know prayer candle etiquette? I don't want to anger.
I feel like you just keep it burning.
Okay.
Yeah, just keep it burning. Yeah.
All right, we'll leave it there burning. What is the name of this candle again? Virgin de Guadalupe. So
sounds like a winner. Mike, come on, man. We're lighting candles for you, dog. They're not doing that in Tuscaloosa. They don't even know who you are. They think your accomplishments at Memphis and Florida State are a joke.
Okay. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. If this didn't bother you, us speculating for an hour, hit the thumbs up on the way out. That would be cool. We'd appreciate that. We'll be back on Monday, and we'll have Michael Langston on to sum up everything that's going on recruiting-wise, but that's going on over at warchant.com. And for real, everybody, Ira and Gene, could you feel the anxiety in Ira's group message on our work platform, Corey, when he had to step away for 30 minutes to go pick his child up from school?
Yeah.
Ira and Gene are probably not going to sleep until this all gets figured out. So go to warchant.com, subscribe. This is the time to do it. They've got updates as soon as they come across their telephone. It's going right onto the tribal council of warchant.com. Thankfully, it's been kind of quiet since we've been on here for the last hour trying to hold down the fort, Corey. But once things start happening, it'll happen over on the tribal council first. So subscribe to warchant.com, the ultimate Seminoles sports source. Thanks again to Corner Pocket Bar and Grill for being our sponsor all the darn time. And thanks to our friends at Vitamin Energy for hooking us up with the promo code WarChampBOGO. Use all that. For Corey, I'm Aslan. And for our friend Josiah back there producing for stuff, we say thank you for watching this edition of Wake Up Warchant presented by the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Deuces, Corey. Thank you.